let's build a web app. Hey guys, what is up? My name is Jono, and today we're going to be building the web front end to a URL shortener that we built a couple of weeks ago. So if you guys haven't seen that video, be sure to check out the video in the description. Might give you a little bit more context. But as a quick overview, what we have is a web API written in .NET Core, and now we're going to be building the web front end. So what we're going to be using for this is we're going to be using Nuxt.js for our JavaScript framework, and we're also going to be using Tailwind CSS for our CSS framework. If I could best describe myself with one picture as a developer, it would be this. I've got a really, really nice ass. So I think as a developer, I'm much more back-end focused. I think a lot of my skills are a lot better on the back end. I feel like I've still got a hell of a lot to learn. So in this video, I'm probably gonna make a lot of mistakes. And if you guys are a lot more experienced using front end, definitely let me know. So pretty much what I'm trying to say is I got absolutely no idea what I'm doing when it comes to front end stuff. I'm just sort of floating about, hoping that it works. And when something comes up, just trying to Google it. That's pretty much how I live my life when it comes to front end. Okay, so now you know what we're gonna be using. Let's jump into it. So we've just done the main design portion of the website. So let's jump into Visual Studio Code. I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what our front end looks like. It's pretty simple. We just got a logo at the top, little title, little subtitle, and then our text box to shorten stuff. So obviously this doesn't do anything yet just because I haven't actually wired up any of the JavaScript or anything like that. And if we run it on mobile, it looks pretty good too. So it's going to be mobile friendly, which is what we want. Essentially, what I'm using is, obviously Tailwind CSS. So we're using the containers and we're using their Flexbox. That's what I'm most comfortable with is using Flexbox. And then we have this logo. So this is an SVG. So this is a big, long SVG. I'll show you where I got this logo from and some of the resources that I've been using. And then, simple. Just have a H1, H2 for our URL and for our title and our subtitle. I'm a really, really big fan of Tailwind CSS just because I personally do not know CSS like nowhere near enough as I should. And I guess that's probably a downfall on my part. I probably should actually learn CSS properly rather than just relying on Tailwind. But yeah, it gets the job done. It works. So I'm happy with that. But let me show you some of the resources that I've used. So for Tailwind, I'm actually using Tailwind UI. So I've actually paid for this. I think I paid around 250 Australian dollars or something like that to get all of these components. So they actually have free templates that you can use or free components. Again, I'm not very good at CSS, so this just really helps me speed up my workflow and stuff like that. For these icons here, for these like globe icons and these little download icons, there's some free resources at this here, heroicons.com. So this gives you a whole bunch of these SVGs that you can actually just copy and paste directly into your code. If I wanted a down arrow rather than the download icon sort of thing, I'll just copy that, hit paste. Cool. So I actually like that icon better. So I'm going to keep it at that. And then next is going to be Undraw. This is a platform where it's an open source illustrations that you can just use for your website essentially. Again, they have so many free things that you can just use. Like there's all these really high quality logos or illustrations that you can just put on your website. So if you guys have any resources that you guys love to use on a day-to-day basis, definitely put them in the comment section below, just because I always like finding new resources and being able to have a sort of a library that I can go to whenever I'm building something. All the links to all these resources will be in the description. So hopefully you guys can find some use out of them as well. So that's all I really got time for tonight, but hopefully tomorrow I can tackle the JavaScript and actually connect the back end and the front end together. So stick around, we'll do that tomorrow.
Tell us
finally finished our web app. We've got our front end and our back end talking to each other. So let's jump into Visual Studio and I'll show you how it works. Okay, so it's pretty simple. So I'll just go grab a URL, chuck it in our text box here, hit shorten, and it just shortens our URL. So it gives us a link where we can just click on that and it'll open it up in a new tab and redirect us to the URL. So let's do that again. Get my latest YouTube video, copy and paste that in there. And as you can see, it just adds it to the list there. So I can go on that and it'll take me to the URL as expected. In our backend, what I had to do was add a cause policy that actually allowed the front end to talk to the back end without it throwing an error. So essentially it's saying, okay, a request can come from anywhere. It can execute any method and any header can be allowed in the request as well. So this configuration might actually change, but to get it working in the test environment, I just used the allow pretty much everything. So yeah, that's all the changes that I had to make on the back end. And if we look at the front end, it's not too difficult. All we do is on our button, we have our click handler to say shorten URL. So this shorten URL method is essentially going to check whether the URL has been entered, whether it's null or white space. So if I go back to our front end and I try and hit shorten, we get a URL is required error message. And then we're going to confirm whether our URL is actually a URL. So if I type in gibberish, try and hit shorten again, you'll see URL is invalid. So after we've confirmed that our URL has been entered and it's an actual URL, it's not invalid, then we're going to send the request to our backend. So this is me sending the request here. We're sending a post request and we're just passing it the URL. After we've successfully got a response, then we're just going to be adding our URL to our array of shortened URLs. If I just use the same URL and hit go, you'll see that it's added to the top of our list here. So you don't have to go scrolling all the way down to the bottom, etc. So I've just shut down our backend. And if I try to request another URL, we should get some error messages. So we've got a loading spinner here waiting for it to respond. And then, yep, sorry, the API is offline. Please try again later. And that will be similar if we get any other error message, etc. So let me just show you how we're actually displaying our shortened URL. So we're using a for loop. So essentially we're saying, okay, for every shortened URL in the shortened URLs array, and we're going to just say, yep, your shortened URL. And then we're going to put in the shortened URL and we're going to bind to the href of this anchor here. So when I actually have shortened a URL, I've got this here. So since we finally finished our application, the other thing left is to actually deploy it. But I'm going to save that for another time. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like, leave a comment and subscribe. And all the code for this project will be in my Git repository, link in the description below. So go check that out if you're interested. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next one.